All right, welcome into Browns Film Breakdown. It's your weekend edition of the show. I'm here joined by Scott for a portion of the early setup here, and then we are going to do some other parts of the content. I'm going to do top 10 tight ends. He's going to talk about the three he scouted for the newsletter, and then we are going to have the culmination of our AFC North study where we get some time with a Ravens guest. We'll get to all of that. Before we do so, I do want to remind you of things we have going on at the website. We have spent some time with Bengals and Steelers guests, so that's a podcast you can find. We also spent some time recently discussing in depth a bit more of how we envision Travis Hunter fitting on both sides of the football, how you manage that. There's going to be, as the draft approaches this week, a lot to discuss with how that all shapes up, our thoughts on what percentage of offense, defense he's playing, so on and so forth. And we will cover all of that. And then we also had Cody Sook put together a nice day. You sort of look at how the Browns go back from the first parts of day two, that 33rd pick, into the late first round on Thursday night with some realistic trade options. You can find all of that. So make sure to come to brownsfilmbreakdown.com and get inside the membership channels that we have, which are fantastic. Obviously, our founders group, which is our strongest supporting group, has the Browns Film Breakdown hat. They have a Slack channel dedicated to content and discussion all day. So you can find us there. And then if you're just listening, maybe new to the show, maybe checking us out for the first time, something of the sort, or maybe you haven't done this, we would appreciate a 5-star and a written review if we can find a way to do that to help us find more Browns fans on the Apple Spotify side. And then if you're on YouTube, we always appreciate the thumbs up and subscription there as well. But I urge you to come over and try brownsfilmbreakdown.com, where we have some trial periods you can do to see the value that we bring to your Browns experience. If you crave this team, if you crave the discussion, if you crave thinking about them, how they're going to get better, what they're doing in the draft, and how, who they draft, the analysis, we have you covered with all of that. So branching off of the newsletter that went up on Saturday morning, Scott, I want to get your opinion on three very important tight ends. I didn't want you to really look at the whole class, but I wanted you to feel out the top three names they brought in that we think they could pick as early as 33. I don't think they're going that route at 33, but more likely the 67, 94, 104 ranges, which is that early, like we said, the early third round sort of setup that they have, or the late third round pick, or then if the day turns over, the first few picks of the fourth round, that day three. So these are the guys they brought in. We think they feel strongly about them. We'll see if they're going to take them. Let's lead off with Elijah Arroyo out of Miami.
Cool, man. Yeah, so I agree with you here. I don't think any of these three are worth number 33. I think you can fill a different need with that pick. But I think that if the team wants to get any of these guys, they're going to have to do it on night 2, because they should all be gone by the end of the third round. So yeah, starting with Arroyo, I like him. There's a lot to like about this guy. He's, true senior who missed he only played 11 games over his middle 2 seasons in college because of a knee injury. So he hasn't played as much as a true senior would at this point. But so he's an average plus athlete. I think he's a little bit quicker than he is fast. But he's a bit of an upright mover, but everything, all of the athletic traits are right on the 3-4 line, the average to above average line for me. But I really like his size and his strength. It's just, he's almost like a total package tight end for me. So that adds a lot of value for him. I think as a run blocker, he's above average. Thinking back to my time with the team, I always kind of felt I was a little higher on tight end blocking ability than maybe the other people within the organization. Just it's hard for those guys to do that. Especially if they're going one-on-one against a D end, it kind of is more like a why is your coach putting you in that position thing if you can't do it, or if you're just clearly outmatched. But this guy Arroyo, he has the strength, he has pretty good technique. I think you can see he plays high when he's blocking, which is just, I think, comes naturally with how athletic he is and how he moves. But he's tough, he's strong, he can move guys around. I think he has enough lateral ability for the zone game. I think of the 3 guys that I watched here in this newsletter, he's the one that you could put at Y, attached tight end there, and can kind of get away with him as a blocker. I think if he was teamed with Njoku, that'd be a great pair. I think in space he can move too, because he's big. He can kind of get on top of smaller defenders and can kind of like just control things in space. Again, like the athleticism can kind of show up there, but like he is a good blocker in my opinion. His receiving ability, like that's another thing that's like right on the 3-4 like good or average, above average line for me. His hands are really consistent and good, which is great. But I think his route running is like frustrating, can get a little sloppy, which I think he's going to have to clean up at the next level. Again, he's upright runner, has to build up his speed, does really well when he gets a free release. I think his size and his length help a lot against like an early jam and can kind of help him create some space. But I think he is like at times overly physical that like, how often do they call offensive pass interference anyways these days? But like, I think this is a guy who could get flagged for that a bunch if he doesn't clean it up. But, I think like his short area quickness is better than expected. Again, for how like upright he is, I think he can actually like bend fairly well running routes, but he gets sloppy like at the top of the route and kind of like just isn't as sharp as he needs to be to like consistently get open. So I think like he's really good in like the intermediate area. I think he's fearless going over the middle or like seam ball. He can hold on to the ball in contested situations. I just think that like the route running like crispness needs to get better for him to really like get to that next level. Overall, like when he gets the ball in his hands, like I like, again, the toughness. You can see it on tape. Like I think he has pretty good vision. If he's running like a tight end screen game, like he can eat up yards, but like, he's definitely not a, wiggle guy who's going to make you miss in space. But he will like put his shoulder into you, which is good to see. I think like overall, this is, like I said, a like almost a total package tight end. Like I think he can clean up some stuff to really get to the next level. But the right on the line of good receiving ability, in my mind, good blocking ability makes this guy like a pretty good starter. He's going to be a starter once he gets going in the league. If the Browns take him, I think he's a great compliment for Njoku. I also think he could fill the number one role if needed. Like if David went out for a little while, like I think there's a lot to like with this guy. And like I said, there's some stuff to clean up, but he's got a lot to work with. And another thing too, this dude's like underrated in pass protection. Like he's just, again, it kind of goes along with the blocking ability. Like it's better than expected because tight ends typically struggle in pass protection. Like it's just another kind of tip in the hat or feather in the cap, I should say, to like just see this guy can be a starter. Eventually I gave him a 54. I like this dude.
Yeah, he's the one that he's like the best of the group that does still carry some concern, right? He's a 1-year producer. He played a lot of games as an extra tight end. They had Will Mallory, who started a lot of games early in his career. Then he his sophomore year had a left knee injury, another left knee injury his junior year. So there was really very little production at all those 2 years before his senior year. Obviously 35 catches, 597 touchdowns, only 1 drop. So a lot to like in that final year, but you don't have a bigger body of work. Obviously you carry the left knee concerns, especially at a position that demands a lot of torque, a lot of body wear and tear at times. So you are recognizing that. You are also recognizing, like I said, when you get no testing data, that's a bit troubling, especially at the tight end position, because you'd like to know a little bit more. I mean, you didn't get anything at the pro day or combine, not even a bench press. Now, I think he's strong enough and I think he's athletic enough. I think he came into college at 220, has got to 250. He looks the part. I'm not overly concerned here, but I do think they're like, well, okay, why would Elijah Arroyo make it to 74 or, whatever, 64, or I think it's actually 67 or 94. Like, I think there's a chance because of the missing testing data, obviously on top of the 1-year production and the left knee injuries, and he's up over 22. He's not 21. I know it's not the end of the world here, but it is something that of the better prospects here, I think there's a chance he's there at 94. That's the way I would phrase it. But I think he very much could be gone by then. But I do think when you're like, we'd like to see multiple years of production, we'd like to see a clean bill of health where that hasn't hindered him in college, and then we would like to see some testing data to know what kind of athlete we're working with. You don't have any of that. So something to keep in mind. But I do think he's good. If you want to maybe elaborate on your actual grade there, you can can throw that in as far as the number
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah, no, so I got, like I said, 54 is a 50 grade is a capable starter in the Browns grading scale. The
Mhm.
4 is just like the probability grade. It's a 1 through 5 scale probability grade. So like it's I think it was like 70% chance that I see he has a 70% chance of becoming a capable starter by the end of his second year in the league. Um, I think that he like if he did come to the Browns, like it would be a good opportunity for him to like actually grow into that role because
Yeah.
he does have the versatility to split out wide. And so like he's not like only a Y or only an F, like kind of like the guy or one of the guys we'll talk about later. So I think that versatility helps him to like eventually to fill multiple roles early and then eventually like ascend into a starting role in at one of those spots, however it works out. So like I do see what you're saying about the age. Like I think him being a true senior helps because I mean, especially they're still kind of getting remnants of the COVID stuff when guys are, 24, 23 coming out. So that helps. Yeah, I mean the 1 year really of production, which like is kind of average production anyway. Like you wish it was more. But it kind of seems like other than Fannin, really, like a lot of these guys don't have a ton of like big numbers. I mean, like Loveland only got like 500 something yards too, and he's supposed to be a
Yeah.
first round pick, like slam dunk. So,
Yeah.
just kind of it's just a weird year for like not great production by tight ends.
Yeah, but you still, yeah, like you said, the production stuff, you kind of make it more of a market share thing. How much of the receiver yards are they getting, especially Loveland with that disastrous quarterback situation
Yeah.
there and kind of their only weapon. But I'm with that. I mean, especially playing with Cam Ward, you would have liked to seen a little more, but I know you were like me or, intrigued enough by the diversity and what they were asking him to do. Sometimes he would even line up as a backside X. Like he can do some of those things. I
Yeah.
think it's just a matter of like, we have these holes in his profile. Are we okay with the holes in the profile, trusting the tape more than anything else and trusting the time you spent with him and the background checks you've done with him? That's a lot of what you're doing there. So good player. Now you mentioned
Yeah.
Harold Fannin. Let's dig into that one next. We don't have to go too crazy here. The Canton kid, the story's
Yeah.
crazy, right? Was more of an athlete coming out of college or out of the high school world. Wasn't really heavily recruited. Ends up at BG and just like, oh, let's put this kid at tight end and see what happens. And he takes off. The production is pretty ridiculous. I mean, he had the type of a year Royo did his junior year with 44 for 623 and 6. And then you look at what he did this past year with 117 receptions, 1,555 yards, and 10 touchdowns. I understand fully this is the MAC. It is not the SEC or the Big Ten, but that's a silly level of production. You really cannot hand wave that away to be a college player that gets that. Like, let me put it this way, Scott. For me, if you're going to be a lower tier prospect, you better damn well dominate. And this
Yeah.
is like an insane level of domination. And it's not done in a, like, they kept doing it one way. He's pretty diverse in what they got out of him. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think of him collectively.
Yeah. So all right. So I mean, this is a small sample size, but like yes, he's a Maxian legend all time. Small sample size, but he goes for 11, 137 and a touchdown against Penn State, 8 for 145 and a touchdown against Texas A&M. Like, I mean, yes, it's only 2 games, but I mean, he did what he as best as he could against his best competition, last year. So it's not like he rose to the occasion, made it happen, and kind of like basically proved BG right for like making him the focal point of the offense by like showing up in those games and having monster games, in my opinion. I think that like, so I'll skip to the end. I gave him a 51, and I mean, I think I almost like him more than the grade, but thinking of where he would fit, like what role he would fit. I kept it to a 51 because like I think he is like an F or like a move tight end. His like, I mean, he's undersized compared to like a lot of these other top guys. He's only like 6'3", I believe. I think that like he's a tough competitive blocker, but I don't think that like he's going to be able to show up as an inline Y, like be an extra lineman of, he's not like that kind of guy. He's not going to move people. He's not going to move DNs in the NFL, but he can add as like an auxiliary blocker and an extra blocker, be like a wing or like when they're tight, like in a receiver stance, but like tight to the line. Like I think he can do that. I think like his lateral movement is good enough in like the zone game to be effective there. Look, this guy's an awkward mover, and if you throw on his tape at all, like it doesn't look that like natural the way that he moves, but he does have pretty good like quickness and like snap to when he runs routes, and like he can kind of create separation just off of his route running. It doesn't have to like rely on physicality. It's not going to be as easy for him to get open with physicality in the league. He's given his size, being smaller. But I think he does have a good, like, of the three guys I watched, I think he had the best feel for like initiating contact with like a safety or a linebacker, and then like just feeling how to like use his body to push off and create some space. So like his receiving ability is the best of the guys that I watched, in my opinion. I think that like he understands how to run routes. He understands against like zone how to get open, how to find open space. He's aware of where defenders are as plays extend. Like that's really something like encouraging to see, because like you have to be like, I think with Arroyo, he kind of just would like run across the field and not really like have a plan. Whereas like Fannin, from what I saw, like kind of just realized where everybody was and like knew how to get open. So like that's a plus, obviously. His hands are solid, like extremely good, borderline rare. I think like he's competitive at the catch point. I think the size will catch up with him more than it did in college, and when he's like going up against a defender trying to get the ball. But he's very competitive. I think when he's has the ball in his hands, his vision is really good. Not afraid to lower the shoulder, and like has some pop behind his hits too that like you don't necessarily expect from a guy his size. But like again, because his like awkward movement style, like he's not gonna shimmy guys and make them miss in space. Although he did have what game was that? I think Toledo maybe had a really nice deep ball, or Texas A&M. Either way, it's not gonna be consistent at the next level. But I think that his like understanding of how to get open as a receiver, his hands, his versatility to move around like basically all over the formation, can really make him like a chess piece. And like I'll say that the 51 grade, like because I think a lot of people would put like the role player grade, the 40 grade that like we've talked about in the past. I think like he kind of fits that really well. But how the Browns saw it was like if you can be like, it was like red in a role. So like if you're a 60 like grade caliber, role player, like that is a 50, like that's a capable starter, because like you have to be on the field like more than just a normal role player would be. So like that's how I see Loaded's ceiling is. I think he's not going to be a every down Y tight end who's going to grind it in the run game, but I think he's like awareness, his receiving ability, his hands, and his versatility just make him someone that's going to like find a niche role and like excel in it. So like I think there's a lot to like about this guy, despite being like looking at him running down the field and be like, what the hell's going on here? But like I think he's got a lot to him.
Right. I see some in this is maybe me wanting to be optimistic here, but in terms of their game, I see a lot of Isaiah Likely, and I think there's a pair here where Isaiah Likely is kind of taken, where he's selected in the draft, that 4th round 139, pretty similar 6'4", 240, mid 240s. But I don't know that Isaiah Likely is going to be like leading a tight end room, like collectively, consistently leading it. That's the gamble that they're sort of taking Baltimore with their Mark Andrews situation. But he could. You just don't know for sure. I kind of feel that way about Fannin. I feel like I love him at 104, or if they pick up a pick in the 120s. Like I'm with you. The profile production wise is so interesting. The story is really fascinating. Obviously being a Canton kid and then such a prestigious high school program, getting the grades right at the last moment for BG to make some room to bring him in. But he's young. He's 100. He's just under 21 years old. He's going to be drafted at 20. And you do think that, like you said, although some of the movement stuff can be a little like, I don't know how that worked, it just sort of does for him.
Right.
I will be fascinated to see if it kind of like just sort of works against NFL level competition. But like you said, when you cut on tape of Penn State loaded with NFL players on that side of the ball, there's going to be several guys from that defense selected. There's going to be several guys from Texas A&M selected in the NFL draft here. Like, he dominated those games. And I am, at least I said, if I'm looking for a complementary piece to David, some move around positionally, maybe adding some stuff in the backfield because he's a fighter where he can come out of that, slice blocking, doing various fun things back there. Like, I'm just really fascinated with the idea of like him being that second, that really great in a tight end heavy scenario where you again do like, this might be again wishful thinking, but I kind of envision that Milrow structure if you get into that world where you are playing those two tight ends, that likely complement to Njoku, sort of the way Andrews, it all works together with Lamar. That's where it does get interesting to me. So his mock draftable chart, a 4.71 40, but he obviously 10-yard split was really good, 87th percentile at a 1.56. So there is good burst in there when he gets going. You really like the 10-yard split. The 3-cone drill, you talked about it, some of the suddenness, the shiftiness that he has, that was 82nd percentile as well. And then he did throw up 22 bench reps, which puts him in the mid 60s, almost 70th percentile there. So the arm length, 21st percentile, the hand size is small. Those are concerning. The weight, obviously 9th percentile, 23rd percentile height. Not a big guy, not a physically imposing player, but a really productive player, kind of really honestly has a similar size structure to Brock Bowers. So interesting, right? I'm interested.
Yeah.
Let's quickly get on Mason Taylor. I know we gotta speed through this one, but I do think Mason, I find it interesting. I don't know if he's going to be out of their range because this was the one that's sort of sniffing around that second round range more than anybody, kind of the NFL pedigree and all that he has.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your notes on him?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think he's got a higher chance than the other two to be gone, before that third round starts. But I think I'm a little lower on him than some other people. I like what he can do. I mean, there's a ton to like. Like, the age is great. He's super young. Obviously, like, his background is what it is. Like, multiple Hall of Famer and a All Pro. Or if Zach Thomas was an All Pro, I don't remember. But really good pedigree here he's coming from. So there's a lot to work with this guy. However, I was like a little lower on. I'm disappointed in his strength. I think that's going to like kind of hang him up to the next level, because I don't think that, at least not immediately, he's not going to be able to like be a Y inline blocker or just a line at that position, because I think he's going to get eaten up by defensive linemen. And I think like that is like kind of like the biggest like thing that he's going to have to work on, in my opinion. And like, you don't know how long it'll take for him to develop that strength. I think his like receiving ability is what he hangs his hat on. There's a lot to like there. I think that he does have some decent speed and like route running ability. He does get a little bit like over his toes. So like there's like some awkward moments as a running routes, which is like weird to see. But his hands are good, and I know he's like a reliable option for them at LSU. Another guy that didn't have a ton of production, in his last year, but like there's a lot to like with him. I think that like he's going to he will end up being like a similar role to Fannin, where he's like not necessarily as versatile and moving completely around the formation as Fannin, but like he's going to be a detached like wing slot guy, and he's going to have to like kind of excel in that receiving role. In terms of like his separation, I think like his snap and his suddenness and routes can get it done on its own, but he's going to struggle against physicality. Like, he doesn't have the same feel of how to use his body to get open, I don't think. And then he's just not strong enough really to like consistently push off, in my opinion. So I think that like there's definitely something there to develop. He's not going to be a like full on do everything tight end. I just don't see that in his career at all. And I think other people do, which is why they got him kind of up so high. You never know, because he's so young. He could develop into that. I think he's going to like find a role as a receiving tight end who, kind of excels more split out or just off the line. But like, there's a lot that I think he has to work on to like clean up and really kind of just get into that role and like make it his kind of thing. So like, there's a lot to like, but I just like, there's more hesitation in my mind with like, will he actually get there and how long will it take? You know, so I did give him 51. I think he can develop into like a solid receiver. It just might take a while.
Yeah, his production is a little so like in terms of why do people like him? I think there's pedigree that people like. I think there's a lot of production consistency from his early years. I mean, you're talking about as a freshman, 38, 4, 14, and 3 touchdowns, kind of carrying that into more of a stronger junior year. He's also on the younger side, not going to quite be 21 by the night of the draft. But 129 catches, 1,308 yards, 6 touchdowns, consistent production. I think that he's like a high basement tight end that has a good chance to be a first, front of the tight end room group. He doesn't have the injury history, only missed 1 game in his career. So I get it. I think I wish we had a little more testing in terms of some of his explosion. The running was good, not elite, but a good 40 at 4.68, right? So I would have liked a little more. And then there is a little difference to me between his 3-cone was strong, but the shuttle was really poor. So you do have some of those concerns about the ability of the athleticism to consistently carry in the way that you would like it to. But I'm a little higher. I think I just trust him more than Arroyo, largely because of the lack of injury history and a bit more production consistency. But I think that where I'm most drawn is Fannon's ability to complement David and Fannon's ability to be had at a price that I think fits what the Browns need at that spot. I just don't feel good about, say, 67 when I think that they could probably use something more premium position there. Whereas if I know Fannon's upside, his basement's a little lower, but the upside could ultimately be leading a tight end room and be really strong there. I am more interested in the value of that in the 94, 104 range. And it's hard. I know Taylor will be gone. I don't know about Arroyo. They're probably interested in that if it's there, but Fannon's a really good fallback. So Scott wrote these up. Go check them out. They're in deep detail. Little film stuff is attached to it as well in the newsletter. So that's available for you. We're going to take a quick break, come back. I will do the rest of the tight ends in the class, put them together in a top 10 list for you in terms of where we would like them. Some of my sleeper guys at the end are maybe names you haven't heard. So stick around for that. And then we'll be back a little bit later with our Ravens guest as well. So thanks to Scott for stopping by. We'll get more from him this week in a busy draft week. And guys, we will be right back after a quick break. All right, we have talked through Scott's scouting reports on guys the Browns brought in at the position, but I do quickly want to go through tight ends with you guys that I view as the full grouping of 10. We'll skip obviously the guys we've talked about a little bit here, but we'll talk through some of the names we have not. So first up, you'll see on your screen there is Thomas Fidone, the second. I think he's a really, really fun football player. Collectively, a good profile, 22.5 at draft time, 6'5", 243, good size for the position. Started for a couple years as the wide tight end. Good, pretty good, movement ability here. Talking about a 4.7 flat, 35.5-inch vertical, 10.6 broad jump, short shuttle was strong. A lot to like, man. Good route runner in a pro-style offense. Pretty good foot speed, got long arms. He's comfortable using those as a blocker, really mixes it up as a blocker. It's sort of that, if you're looking for a guy to come in and play some Y for you early, I think there's a fit here. Played in 25 games past 2 years. Injuries in his first 2 seasons, but been healthy the last 2 is a part of his profile. I think that makes people feel a little bit better. Not much after the catch, and he's not the most gifted route runner, but good baseline of skills. If you're looking late in the draft, I think there's a good baseline of skills here. Adequate in the passing game, not great, but adequate, and a really determined and powerful blocker who I think fits a lot of what the Browns are looking for. So the career production wasn't great, but Thomas Fidone, I think, is a nice fit. 36 catches, 373 yards last year, 633 for his college career, 4 touchdowns. So if they're late, didn't get who they wanted, I think he makes a lot of sense as you push toward the middle to late portion of day 3. So he is my number 10 tight end. Next is Oronde Gadsden, who I think, obviously this is the junior, his father being a really, actually the second, a really good NFL wide receiver for a long time. 6'5", 241, just under 22 years old at the draft. Good production, man, in the Syracuse offense. 73 yards, 73 catches, 934 yards, 7 touchdowns. And that was in 24. He was out most of 2023. He had a right foot injury that cost him 11 games. He was extremely productive in 2022, 61 catches, 969 yards, 6 touchdowns as well. So NFL pedigree in his background, tall, rangy, he's got good hand strength. The foot quickness, I think, is good in and out of breaks, multiple break type of routes, a lot of wide receiver skill to his position. He's a willing blocker, not good, not strong enough yet, but if you're looking for more of that move tight end, can get out, play the slot, I think there's a real draw to this player. The athleticism isn't quite as strong as you would hope it to be, but it's good enough, obviously, to fit the profile that he has. Needs to continue developing that play strength, to continue to become more of that full picture tight end, work on the, that inside portion of the line of scrimmage. The Lisfranc injury that I was talking about for 2023 does sort of sit there peripherally as well, but I feel like he's more of that 5th round range tight end, which makes it a little tough for the Browns. But if they're in that spot, moving back, something of the sort, I do think there's a real appeal to his profile that I think the Browns will, as a 4.65 40 guy and 34.5-inch vertical, the broad jump's nearly 10 feet. I think he's got a lot of things they like, and leans a little bit more pass catcher in this one. So that's number 9. Number 8 is Mitchell Evans, who I think, again, just a nice depth tight end on an NFL roster. Nothing crazy production-wise, but does come from a good pedigree of tight ends at Notre Dame. This past season, 2 straight seasons really of 400 yards receiving, 29 for 422 and 1 touchdown in 23, 43, 421 and 3 touchdowns this past year. So I think, again, functional athlete. He's fluid and nimble enough, but not a great athlete. Attacks the football well, and good hands, man. A lot of one-handed catches you'll see on this profile that are really, really strong. Adequate to willing, above average blocker. I think he can really get after it there. I think he's got good like upper body pop, and the lower body leg strength is good. I think there's some functional stuff to clean up there, but I do think he's going to be a nice piece of a blocking, tight end room at some point when he kind of develops into the sort of technician I think he can be. Wasn't asked to do much vertically down the field, so it wasn't like a 3-layer route runner. More of the intermediate and shallow portions of the field were where he was at. And again, I think there's some functional stuff in the run game that he has to improve. I'm not even sure he will be a good H to start, but I think he's an inline player. He can shallow, intermediate portions of the field, what the Browns are looking for, which again, I think is important. He did deal with several injuries. He's had a broken left foot in 2022 that missed some time. He had to repair this 5th metatarsal in 2022 as well, torn MCL, partially torn ACL in 23. So this feels like a late round player, but I think the complete picture of what the athlete is, which is a strong athlete, considering I feel like he's more of a blocking style tight end, just over 22 at 6'5", 253. I do think the fit could be there for a late round selection. I don't feel like you would take Evans over Gadsden as far as a profile, but I do think he's coming into the NFL a better player. So that is Mitchell Evans. We're going to move now to Gunnar Helm out of Texas. So Helm didn't test well, but there was some stuff about possibly some injuries, some lower body injuries that caused him to struggle there. He's 22.5, a little over 22.5 at draft, 6'5", 241. Really good. He's a good athlete collectively. I don't think he's great, but he's good. I don't think the testing is super reflective. He's got really good balance, and he's strong at the catch point, adjusting the body, good body control, good hands. And I think he's got NFL physicality as a blocker. I do concerns about the toughness, his willingness to really root out interior offensive linemen, maybe those crack blocks. Can he handle that as a 3-down player? But I think he could be a mismatch weapon against safeties. I think he can be a player who can work himself into being like a quarterback's best friend. He's very adept at the scramble drill, with comfort getting to that second level, sort of walling off linebackers in that zone stuff. And, again, a natural catcher of the football that creates that leverage that you need at the position to come up with more. Hands improved, I thought, as his career went on. And as a blocker, I think that there's a lack of upper body functional strength that causes him to slip off of guys too often. And I also think that kind of becomes a bit habitual out in open space for him as well. But I think the pedigree is strong. I think the understanding of the position is strong. That's why I have him as my number 7 tight end. Now we get into kind of the more of the range the Browns are interested in. So we don't need to spend too much time on these other than Terrence Ferguson, who I think we did not cover with Scott, but I think is a really interesting prospect for the Browns. So Terrence Ferguson is just over 22 years old, big guy, 6'5", 247, but a good frame. And listen, steady ball skills, 25.6% of his catches, 20 yards or more. He can get open down the field. He's comfortable working in the deep portions of the field. Needs some technical work, tighter hands and feet as a blocker, a little wide with the base, a little wide with the hands, but a willingness to do it. He has a strong foundation, the anchor, and be able to root guys out down in that split zone look down near the line of scrimmage. I've seen Dane Brugler compare him to Jake Ferguson. I think that's functionally correct to me. That feels right. 4'6", 340, 39-inch vertical, over 10, 10-2 broad. All of that is really good, man. And I think he's subtly quicker than you would think. And I think that offense didn't necessarily highlight a lot of those things for him all the time in a way that is like, again, sort of punctual for a tight end to get every bit of attention they need. But man, I really like his hand-eye coordination. I think the strength is good, can play in the slot, can block on the perimeter. And I'm fascinated with that. I don't know what his long speed is as good as the data shows us there, but I do think that he can get down the field and be a functional playmaker down the field. Now, there's some effort things on blocks. There's some whiffs that will happen here and there, but I am at least interested in sort of giving him this idea of, hey, this is your role. This is how you make it in the league, seeing if the talent can then meet some of the necessity that the position that I think he can start to catch in on, and really the Browns could cash in on. So, listen, he missed 2 games because of an appendectomy in 2024, and he missed the second half of the game with a head injury in September of 24. So little things that popped up there, but good player, man. Good player, 43 catches, 591, and 3 touchdowns across his college career, 134 catches at Oregon, 1,537 yards, 16 touchdowns. Would be very happy with him around picks 94, 104 for the Browns there. All right, now real quick, 3. We already covered Harold Fannin. He's my number 5 tight end. Covered at length there with Scott. I would have Arroyo at number 4, and then I would have Mason Taylor there at number 3. And then 2 for me, it's tough. Colston Loveland is really fun. It's possible he's there at 33 and they love him and everybody else is gone. I don't think they're going to do this, but Loveland, that just turns 21 right around the draft, is such a fun player. 6'6", 240, better blocker than people think he is. He didn't test, which is a bummer. So I want to see the athlete, but man, he dominated market share of Michigan's passing game. He was one of their only weapons last year and was one of their most dominant weapons the year before, where he had 45 catches, 649, and 4 touchdowns in 2023. He only played 10 games, started 7 in 2024, and still put up 56, 582, and 5. He runs like a wide receiver. He plays the position really well in the route running performance aspect, and I think he's an improving blocker. I think there's some times you can get displaced. He needs to add functional strength. He needs to get stronger. He needs to get the core stronger. But I do think that he is a better blocker than he's given credit for, and I think the base and hands show that he can be even stronger at the point of attack despite the lean body. But man, tough is as tough as it comes in the pass game. Explosive in releases, fluid, efficient stem at the top of routes, like creating that separation in the hands are really sticky. So it's close, but I think Colston Loveland is number 2. Number 1 is Tyler Warren, who should go somewhere in the first 20 picks of this draft. I think Loveland could too and surprise some people, but Warren is a really fun player, but he's older. He's going to be 23 as a 5th-year senior, 6'6", 256, but he comes in ready to play and be really effective right away, man. He is a run blocking dude. He gets after you. He's strong. He will bury you. The tape is as good as any college tight end coming out in that department in a while. But as you know, also a really good athlete, even though we didn't get testing data for him. We had it from Penn State the year before when they do their like junior combine stuff. He's quick. He is maybe not the best linear athlete, but I mean, listen, Penn State's putting him in the quarterback role and some of their Wildcat stuff. So, I mean, he runs hard, runs tough, creates yards after catch. The lower body is really strong, tough to bring down. I think the hands are good, not great, not elite, but really good. The hand-eye coordination is really good. He can track the football. The body control is good. And I just think he's going to be a really, really good NFL tight end when you mix in the blocking traits he brings as well. He had 104 catches, 1,233 yards, 8 touchdowns last year, and is really, really good, and is going to help some football team, hopefully a non-AFC North football team. That's the top tight ends. There are some others I like, just names quickly that I think that could be of interest for the Browns late. CJ Dupree out of Alabama. I think he's a fun football player, 6'5", 256, really strong. One of the better bench press numbers and one of the better blockers in the class that the Browns could get interested in there late. And then the athlete that I like the most late, who's older, he's 23 and almost approaching 24 at the start of the season. He will be 24 at the start of the season, is Jalen Conyers, who is out of Texas Tech. Good athlete, tall, rangy. I think he's a fun, long arms, fun football player that I could be interested in too. Then Luke Lachey is another name, the Iowa kid, who's again older, going to be 24 his first year, but good traits, good blocker, does the little things right. So like him, and then I know Dane Brugler like Caden Prieskorn out of Ole Miss too. So again, another guy is pretty old. He's 25 and a half, going to be 26 in his rookie year. So you get later in the tight ends, you get older in that department. But for the most part, these guys are developmental players, except for the top of the group. But there are some guys who I think between like Fidone and Dupree, who could be the later end guys, that Mitchell Evans group. But if you wanted to get a little more weapon oriented around a Gadsden, and then Harold Fannin would be interesting. And then if they're looking for a more complete, like this guy could be a part of the future, that's where you get into the Ferguson, Arroyo, Mason Taylor, and I include Fannin in that group too. So that's it. That's all. That's our top tight ends, top 10 tight ends, and a couple other names to know. So thanks to Scott for doing that. We're going to get over real quick and close out our AFC North comparison. Not a comparison, really. We're going to look at around the AFC North, what the teams in the division are looking to do with their drafts. So let's get over to that right now. We are joined, as you know, by Kim McCusick, who does such a good job with his Film Study Ravens work. So you need to check him out, follow him at Film Study Ravens as well. So great stuff. A really interesting draft for Baltimore with where they're at and what they might potentially be doing to trade down a little bit. We'll see. There's a lot of good discussion here. So let's get over to our time with Ken right now. All right. Happy to have Ken. Don't need to really introduce him that well anymore. We're almost scheduled meetups at this point, Ken, where we get together and talk about these two teams and the interlocking relationship that they have. I am very interested, though, in your sort of synopsis of the Ravens offseason this year, which has been, I think you would agree with me, a lot more peaceful than last year at this time, with sorting some of the bigger pieces out there. So, yeah, update us on some of the spots that, have come and gone. I know that as far as snap percentage guys from last year, Brandon Stevens departs, Patrick McCarry, some of those depth wide receivers. But, yeah, fill us in on how they've done with losses and additions.
Going quickly, Ronnie Stanley re-signed for 3 years at $20 million. I think is pretty much a hometown discount. Great deal. They did lose 2 of their 3 offensive tackles, both of their backup guys in McCary and Jones, which I think are serious losses. McCary played most of the year at guard for them, of course, and he finished playing pretty darn well. Had a lot of penalties early on that were not as good. They lost a couple of big special teams players, which I don't think is that big an issue in Board and Harrison. Harrison goes to Pittsburgh and gives them a second really poor ILB tackler, which would be very interesting for the Browns and Ravens, who probably rely on the run game some in each case against that. So that'll be interesting. They've lost other players, nobody too serious. Trey White was a guy I think they would have liked to have back, but they got Chidobe Awuzie, I think is the right price guy to play probably right corner. We'll see if he plays there or if Wiggins moves to right corner, which is another possibility. The Ravens offseason, frankly, has gone quite well. I think the acquisition of Awuzie was a good one. I think most of their effort is going into the draft. They didn't lose a lot of free agents that were of high value, and much more stable than last year, where they had a lot of guys departing.
Yeah, the thing I'm interested in, kind of just combing through the roster. I try to stay up to date on this as best I can. The left guard spot stands out to me. At least this is just preliminary talk. The Browns, if you recall, gave up that 7th round pick for a 6th rounder this year, and you guys selected Andrew Voorhees, who was a bit of a contentious prospect because of the injury at the combine, et cetera, et cetera. I know it's probably hard for you to gauge that and how good you feel about it because of the time missed, but is your vibe the organization feels good about that player stepping in this year?
As good as they can. I mean, Voorhees played a little bit last year, so to
Okay.
give you a little bit of the runway here in 23, the 23 draft is when they made that trade. So it was the Browns 7 for the 24-6. Cleveland's already taken it. And I don't even know who that player is, but it's always nice to keep track of the guy like Babatunde Oshinowo is the guy that you got for the trade up for Haloti Nada. Kind of thing. Always good to keep track of that for propaganda purposes at a later time. But
I was all for a full year there, Ken. God, you can tell we're recording late at night. Yeah, I totally botched that. But no,
that's all right. So what happened is they NFI'd him for the whole year because he was injured at the combine. Still did the bench press and bench 38 times, which we thought was a huge deal here in Baltimore. His functional strength in terms of play strength is just not that great. Doesn't have the greatest anchor, which was the thing early in the year that was a problem. Came back, played one game late in the year when McCary had the runs, basically. He had a irritable bowel of some sort, had to leave the field after 6 snaps. Voorhees went and played very well. So that's given us the most hope that he could be the guy this year. I think the Ravens will still draft a guard. They brought back Ben Cleveland, and he's now, like, you just look around the room and you go, how the hell did this happen? He had a big incident with a DUI this offseason. Apparently had some issues, some personal issues with his wife and whatnot that are going on. But anyway, the bottom line is that I thought that would end his Ravens career after that, because for a man his size to get a blood alcohol blow at the blow test at the level he did, he would have had to have like 20 beers in 3 hours. So he had either had a lot of something else, which is the more likely, or whatever it was, very irresponsible that he get out there. But he's the most versatile now lineman the Ravens have, which is, how did this happen? But he can play left guard, right guard. He played a little bit of center last year, and he probably could play right tackle in an emergency. So I think that he's a guy. They've talked about bringing in George Fant, but they're, minor changes. They're going to get, I believe, 2 offensive linemen in the draft. I think that'll be the big thing. It should be one guy who can play tackle as one of them, and then maybe another interior offensive lineman. And looking forward, on May 2nd, they have to make a decision about the 5th-year option on Tyler Linderbaum. I don't see any way the Ravens can pick that up because they have to essentially pay him left tackle money to play center. So that effectively means this is his last year in Baltimore, and the Ravens now need to start the process very quickly in terms of extending him, or he'll just hit the open market. Franchise tag will similarly not be an option next year. So Linderbaum might be at the end of his run. If that's the case, then the Ravens need another interior offensive lineman who can switch to center in 26.
Interesting. Yeah, I think most people, again, sort of peripherally looking at this, would sort of gloss over that, see that relationship continue. But you said the money of that is certainly, the scope of it is different than people probably perceive. So that's good insight. The Rosengarten thing at right tackle, you take him at 62, which is interesting because it's kind of in the world. Some Browns fans feel like there's a tackle for them in this draft class. How's the vibe on him post year 1? Pretty good.
Okay, so he played as well as could be expected. He was about the second best in terms of a PFF grade in the draft. Now, that doesn't even begin to tell a story of how much help he got. And, I grade offensive line play. One of the things we record every single play is what eligible receivers chipped or set block and on which size. And I can tell you there's a lot of R89, R83, numbers on that side of the formation you're seeing where there was either a chip block there or there was a help block there for the entire time. And they really set him up to play well. There's nothing about his season that tells me he can definitely move to left tackle. On the other hand, he didn't really fail in his first season, that's a very good place to be when you start off in the NFL, is just to be at kind of a C level. I think he was maybe a C+ level, I would say. I'm not a big grader on the curve. So when somebody has that in their first year, that's a very big positive. And I think he has developmental runway still left.
Good stuff. Let's talk wide receiver real quick, because it seems as though the extension to Bateman, Zay Flowers, we have an idea of who he is. And then you add DeAndre Hopkins. Is the vibe feeling really good about that group now? Kind of Bateman takes the steps you guys have been hoping he would take, started to come on last year. I know he had arrived by the end of the year to sort of into that really complimentary. I'm not sure he's ever going to be maybe what people hoped he would be coming out of the draft in that late first round. I know we were around that Greg Newsome pick the Browns made. We're very interested in the player, but it does feel like he's figuring it out. And that, people forget that this stuff is not linear, right? It's not always, it's climbing from it can click at any given time. So enlighten us on that. the vibe there, and if you think they're going to still hunt for wide receiver a little bit, maybe a little later on.
Okay, let's start with Bateman because he had an outstanding last year. And the yardage thing is always a little bit lower with the Ravens because nobody has a lot of yardage in an offense that's completely driven by Lamar Jackson. And that is a kind of a problem for the Ravens in terms of recruiting wide receivers. Fortunately, they like to draft them. They don't like to go out and sign them because the economics just don't work in that sense. But Bateman had the highest ever yards per target of a Ravens receiver last year at 10.5 yards. The only guy who's ever been higher is Andrews in his rookie year at tight end at 11.0. So he really had a great year. Had the highest ever percentage of touchdowns for a wide receiver as well, 12.5%. So of targets. So really terrific year. And I think a lot of the NFL, it was kind of unknown. I'm happy you kind of know about it in the division and whatnot. And his contract is now probably one of the ones. He's one of the few second contract guys you could truly trade for a number one pick. So he's got 2 years left at $5 million per year roughly. And there ain't anybody making that kind of money in the NFL. So it'd be I think he'd be an exciting guy for another team to get, and they would potentially trade a first round pick for it. But I don't think the Ravens are looking to deal him either.
Yeah, no, not in this window you guys are in to chase this to the top. I will ask quickly before we get to prospects and positions, the Mark Andrews dynamic. I know obviously that things didn't end the way everybody hoped they would, and it got weird there because of, Mark cares. He wants to win, and I understand all of that, but Isaiah Likely is pushing him. He is certainly a real threat. So is the hunt you have that they're going to ride this another year and go from there? Like, what's the dynamic look like for a future with Mark?
So they just had the Liars Luncheon, the pre-draft press conference that I think most teams hold, but the Ravens have held for many years.
I like that.
So they asked Eric DeCosta, what's the situation with Mark Andrews? Do you anticipate? And his response was completely non-committal. He's like, I never know how that's going to work out. It's almost like a signal being sent out that Mark Andrews is available. But one of the Ravens' problems with Ricard, Kohler, Andrews, and Likely, they cannot draft a tight end. And they have 4 expiring contracts at the end of this year. So it's a very bad position to be in. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Ravens to try and trade Andrews if they get the right price for him. If they couldn't get the right price for him, they ought to be already having the discussion with Likely about an extension, and Andrews for that matter, and figure out which one they can extend at the price that they're happy with and trade the other. Because Likely, I wouldn't want to trade him, but he's got a tremendous amount of value right now. I mean, as much as you'll ever get for him.
Yeah, sure does. And I know there's some people trying to probably lowball on Mark, but you got to get something for him meaningful. So, listen, let's shift over to guys, the draft stuff. I have some data here that just sort of tracks where these goofy mock drafts, but there's so many of them. You do get an idea of at least what people think, and it seems as though there's a lot of, like you said, interest in interior O linemen. I see safety pop up, and I see edge rusher pop up. Are those the more popular spots you think that the Ravens are going to look? I know some of those more premium than others, but certainly feels like that's where people have them slotted.
Yeah, I think those are 3 great places where they might start. They really need a safety. They really need edge rushers. There's paper thin at the position with 2 guys who are going to be gone after this year. So they've got, they've certainly got issues for 26 that they need to address in this draft. Whether or not they think they have all the talent on the roster to win it this year, but they could use another corner. They're getting old at that position. Awuzie and Humphrey both older. Humphrey may have a move to safety in his future, although he's still playing well at corner. I think if he signs for another contract, it'll have to be with the understanding that he's going to move to safety during it. So definitely positions. The safety I really love. I'll give you my top 3 safeties really quickly. I love Emenwari. Absolutely love him. I think he's basically Bo Jackson at the position. There have been a couple other safeties who brought a similar size and speed, and they have not worked out always. But Emenwari also has, for all his rawness, and he's raw as hell on tape, he's got a 37.1 passer rating against this last year. It's a great place to start from when you're going to figure out that. And 220 with a 438, he's a hell of a player. So I think he'd be a great addition and would allow Hamilton to move up. I don't like Starks as much as most people, but he's still my number 3 guy. My number 2 guy is Watts from Notre Dame, who's had 13 interceptions and 0 TDs allowed the last 2 years.
Yeah, super productive. Pair those Notre Dame safeties up would be a little bit of fun. Okay, so you like I said, I kind of introed the show here with you, and so draft capital's right around middle of the league in terms of sheer volume of stuff. So you got 27, 59, 91, a couple picks in the 4th, the 5th, a lot of 6th and 7th. So The question I would ask is, at 27, the Browns or Giants pass on quarterbacks early. They start sniffing around. Do you think interdivision? Because I talked to a Steelers guest for the other show just yesterday, and it's like it was inside the division trades when you know that the other team in your division is coming up to get a quarterback that, you don't want to live in your fears, as Mike Tomlin likes to say, but you do make that trade. You give the other team a quarterback that haunts you for the next 10 years. It does get a little spicy. So I am interested if you think they would take the call from the Browns at that spot.
Absolutely. And it just depends on compensation. But I think if there'd be a lot of Ravens fans who'd be upset if the Ravens traded their first round pick this year and didn't get something back in 25. But I would pull the trigger immediately on a 1-for-1 trade of the Ravens 25 for the Browns 26 pick. Number one.
Okay. I would take that too, just because of the mystery around the Browns, everything around what they're doing. And they could be a team that what you're doing with those.
You would take it as a Ravens fan,
as 100% as a Ravens fan, because you're obviously looking to get those upsides. We'll go from 27 this year. We could go up inside the top 10 next year, potentially, if the quarterback stuff in Cleveland doesn't get any better, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I am with that. I do find that to be an interesting spot, the same way 21 is, the same way kind of Philly is. And if you get really spicy, you can get all the way up to kind of like 24, the Vikings. There are teams that lack capital, period. Vikings, Commanders are the two in the first round that I think that they'll sniff around a little bit. But if they feel like somebody else might jump them, I do think a call to Baltimore could be in play. Let's close with this. I like to do two questions on the way out the door. The first being, if there's a position that looks good on the depth chart, you feel good about it. Maybe, like you said, maybe that's tackle. Maybe that's, could be, like you said, corner, could be somewhere along the lines where or like a wide receiver. Do you think there's a hidden position that if they find the right guy at 27, or maybe interior play? I know they got Travis Jones and they got great talent there, but if there's the right guy who falls to 27, do you think they'd be inclined to go outside of maybe what the needs say and go BPA at that spot?
Oh, sure. I think that's always their first thing. I mean, you look back to the Kyle Hamilton pick, and they didn't need a safety. They got Marcus Williams. And 2 years later, Marcus Williams is who he is, and they're awfully happy to have Kyle Hamilton. I think they do that every year, and I think that Walter Nolan is one of the guys I'd love at 27. I think he's perfectly reasonable. I think Ezeraku at edge is a great choice. I think Jade Barron, or if he were available at corner, wouldn't necessarily be the highest position of need, be a great selection. Who else did I not mention already? We already talked about Emanwari, right? Numerous positions that go. I wouldn't even rule out like Luther Burden being a guy they thought would be an addition that they just couldn't pass off. That would certainly be true if he lasted into the second round somehow.
Yeah. I would ask you this too. Is there a thing you want to avoid? Like if they take Booker or Gray Zabel in that 27 spot, like I know some people are they're just scared of guards. Maybe the athletic testing isn't what they want it to be, or like they prefer that tackle profile that transitions into guard. Is there anybody, and I'm not just making you say guard is the answer here by any stretch, but is there like a prospect or two where you're like, man, I really know they're getting some angle there, but I would prefer to stay away?
Yeah, the big thing I want to do is an IOL in the first round means your fifth year option goes down to basically zero value because you have to pay them tackle money. So I don't like giving up on that friction. I'd rather have it be an edge or a corner or someplace where you know that pick is going to have value there. Even defensive lineman is fine too. So that would be my main problem. The story I have, and the Baltimore fans have heard this from me before in my show up here a number of times, is that I got really upset in the 2007 draft. We were having a little party at my house, and the San Francisco 49ers jumped ahead of the Ravens to pick at number 28, and the Ravens were left picking at number 29. And the 49ers got exactly the player that I wanted, who was Joe Staley, who ended up being a great left tackle in the league for a number of years. And the Ravens got Ben Grubbs, who was a good player, a good guard for a number of years in the league. But they ended up getting a guard, and that's just it was a butterfly effect of great outcome versus good outcome. So fortunately it wasn't great and terrible, but it ruined my day. I can tell you that.
No, I listen, I totally understand that. I will say on the way out too, the last thing I like to do is call your shots. Your first two picks. This is hard. I know second pick is harder than the first one, but if you could pick them, Ken, 27 and 59, who are your guys you would like to take?
Yeah, I'd like to get, give me Donovan Ezeraku with the first pick at the edge, because I think that's a reasonable one they could get. And there's other guys I'd be happy with there. And I take Watts as a reasonable round 2 pick at number 59. It won't necessarily last that long, but I can dream a little bit.
No, I get it, man. It's going to be some fun safeties in that second round, so I can't wait to see how it goes. Ken, we always love when we get your time, man, and I look forward to another catch up or two in the off season before we do our crossovers like we always do. So thanks again, man.
Appreciate you, Jake.